In today's video, I want to talk about the hidden family impact, NT children of ASD parents. We're going to discuss the invisible child, how an ASD parent affects the neurotypical child, and the path to healing. Now let me start with a question that doesn't get asked nearly enough. What happens to children when one parent is emotionally unavailable, not because they don't care, but because their nervous system simply shuts down? Not because of abuse, not because of neglect in the obvious sense, but because emotional connection feels overwhelming, confusing, or unreachable. If you're a neurotypical parent raising children with an autistic spouse, and you've ever noticed one child becoming too quiet, too reasonable, too self-contained, then this video is for you. Today we're talking about the invisible child, the neurotypical child who grows up adapting to emotional absence, shutdowns, and tension they never caused, but learned to manage anyway. And most importantly, we're going to talk about how healing happens. Now, why does this topic matter? Well, when people talk about autism in families, the focus is usually on the autistic individual or the neurotypical spouse. But the children, they're often left out of the conversation, and yet they are watching everything. They notice when one parent disengages. They notice when emotions feel unsafe in the house. They notice when one parent carries all the emotional labor, and because they're children, they don't have the language for it. So instead, they adapt. Now let's talk about the invisible child pattern. Here's what often happens. When one parent is emotionally distant or prone to shutdown, emotional expression becomes unpredictable, connection feels inconsistent, and the household emotional tone becomes tense or fragile. And the kids respond instinctively. Some become caretakers. Some become perfectionists. Some disappear emotionally. Some become anxious, hyper-aware, or overly mature for their age. These kids learn an unspoken rule. My needs are secondary. Big emotions cause problems, and staying small keeps the peace. They don't learn this because anyone teaches it directly. They learn it because the environment quietly trains them. Now let's talk about what the neurotypical child internalizes. We're going to look at what happens inside that child. A neurotypical child is wired for emotional reciprocity. They look for facial cues, tone, attunement, reassurance. But when one parent is emotionally unavailable, the child often concludes, I must be asking too much, or my feelings overwhelm people, or I should handle things on my own. And this can lead to chronic self-doubt, difficulty trusting closeness, emotional suppression, people-pleasing, or a deep fear of being too much. And here's the hard truth. Many of these children grow into adults who look high-functioning, but feel chronically unseen. Now, if you're listening to this and you're recognizing your child or yourself, let's just pause for a moment, take a breath. This isn't about blame. It's about naming reality so it can change. Awareness is the beginning of repair. Now, let's look at the role of the NT spouse. I'm talking to you, the NT mom and wife. You are often doing far more than you realize. You're regulating the emotional climate. You're translating emotional cues. You're buffering your children from adult stress. You're absorbing tension so they don't have to. And while that instinct is loving, it can also become exhausting. The goal is not to compensate endlessly. The goal is to scaffold emotional safety intentionally. That means naming emotions out loud, validating feelings consistently, modeling healthy expression, and letting children know their inner world matters. Even simple statements matter deeply. I see that you're upset, or your feelings make sense, or you don't have to take care of us as your parents. That's how children learn safety. Now let's talk about shielding without silencing. There's a delicate balance here. Children should not be pulled into marital tension. They should not be asked to interpret shutdowns. They should not become emotional mediators. But they can be told the truth in age-appropriate ways. For example, sometimes dad gets overwhelmed and needs some space. That's not because of you. This one sentence can prevent years of internalized blame. Silence creates confusion. Clarity creates safety. Now let's talk about what healing looks like. Healing doesn't require a perfect family system. It requires one consistent emotional anchor. So when a child has one parent who is emotionally present, one adult who mirrors their inner world, and one place where feelings are welcome, their nervous system learns, I matter, connection is safe, I don't have to disappear to belong. And here's something hopeful. Even if a child has already adapted, repair is still possible. Children are remarkably resilient when emotional truth arrives. Now, if you're a neurotypical parent raising children in a neurodivergent household, please hear this. Your awareness matters. Your emotional presence matters. Your modeling matters. And if you're an adult who was the invisible child back in the day, nothing was wrong with you. You adapted to an environment that asked too much of your nervous system. Healing begins when invisibility ends. Now, I've got a series of reflection questions for the parents listening to this video. You may want to pause the video after each question and give yourself a moment to answer it and think about it. There's no rush and no need for perfect answers. So here we go. I got 3 questions in the category of visibility and emotional presence. Which of my children tends to fade into the background emotionally? Who rarely asks for help, comfort, or attention, and how do I respond when they do? And do I notice moments when my child suppresses emotion to keep things calm? Category 2, we're going to talk about family emotional climate. What emotions feel safe to express in our home, and which ones feel risky? How does shutdown, withdrawal, or emotional tension show up for my children? What do my kids learn about emotions by watching how adults handle conflict? The third category is going to be about unspoken roles. Has any child taken on a caretaker, mediator, or easy child role? Who seems overly responsible, mature, or self-sufficient for their age? And what might this child be giving up in order to maintain peace? The fourth category is going to be about meaning making. What might my child be telling themselves about why a parent disconnects? Have I clearly named out loud that emotional distance is not their fault? What assumptions might my child be carrying silently? The fifth category now is going to be modeling emotional regulation. How do I respond when I feel overwhelmed, hurt, or frustrated? Do my children see me self-soothe, name emotions, and recover from stress? What would it look like to model regulation instead of endurance? Now let's look at repair and protection. 3 questions for you. Have I explicitly told my child that they are not responsible for adult emotions? How do I help my children decompress after periods of tension or shutdown? And what small, consistent moments of emotional safety can I offer daily? The last category is about looking forward. What does emotional security look like for this child? Not in theory, but in practice. What conversations might I gently open that I've avoided out of fear or fatigue? And if my child grows up feeling deeply seen by one parent, how might that change their path? And I'd like for you to sit with this final thought. My child doesn't need a perfect family. They need at least one place where their inner world is welcomed. So awareness is not failure, it's the doorway to healing. Now, if this video resonated, you're not alone, and this conversation deserves space. Take care of yourself, take care of your children, and remember, emotional safety can be built even now. Like, subscribe, comment. How have your neurotypical children been affected by this neurodivergent marriage? I read and respond to all comments, and I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching. Would you like to schedule a paid private coaching session? This will be in the form of a face-to-face Zoom call. Underneath any of my videos, you'll see this Calendly link. If you click on that link, it'll open up my calendar. You can pick the available days and times that works for your schedule. You'll get a follow-up email immediately after purchasing a session that will have the Zoom link that coincides with the day and time that you picked. I will get an email too that you scheduled a session, and I will be available on that exact day and time, and we will talk. I look forward to working with you.